Hey, what's up there, YouTubers? It's me again, Brian, aka Gamer55551, and I am back with a video game review. And for this review, I'm going to be taking a look at Serious Sam 4, the latest entry into the Serious Sam series for the Xbox Series X and S, being played on the Xbox Series S though. The game is also available on the PS5, PC via Steam, and Google Stadia. And if you're interested in any gameplay footage, I'll have a link down in the description down below of this video, or you can click on the card that will appear up on this video, assuming you're watching this on YouTube. And for parents out there, it's worth pointing out that Serious Sam 4 is rated M for mature audiences only, ages 17 up, by the ESRB though. Now, for me, I didn't really hear about Serious Sam or ever really played a Serious Sam until a time when Google Stadia was coming out, though, and it was sort of Google's attempt to try to push, their idea of cloud gaming. Of course, they kind of changed course in last year in 2021, and some of the games that they had on there were games like the Serious Sam Collection, which has now made their way to other systems, including the Nintendo Switch. But one of the games they also had, which was at a time exclusive for Google Stadia, was Serious Sam 4. This one acted like, and I'm assuming if I'm hearing this correctly though, acted as a prequel to the events of Serious Sam Collection. And it was a very interesting game though, certainly some modernizing and some changes from what I played in the Serious Sam Collection, but still an enjoyable game nevertheless. The game, like I said, was a time exclusive. It was first only available on Google Stadia and PC, but by December of 2021, it turned out to be that exclusivity ended, and out of nowhere, we learned that Serious Sam 4 made their way over to the PS5 and the Xbox systems, particularly Xbox Series X and S. On top of that, it became part of Game Pass. So with that though, I decided to give the Xbox Series X and S version a go. And after my time with the game though, I would say that those who enjoyed the Serious Sam collection are probably going to enjoy Serious Sam 4. However, I will say the game will appeal to certain audiences depending on how you want to look at it though. So we'll get started with the pros and cons, and we'll start off first with the pros, and that is, the first one is the gameplay. Now the gameplay though is sort of feels like with the Serious Sam collection, more like a throwback to the old school first-person shooters. Games, in some ways, games like Doom and Wolfenstein, and even Turok for that matter though. And while you can play the game from a third-person perspective, I chose to play it in a first-person perspective though, in terms of basically because I just prefer that approach, to be exact though. Most of the gameplay is very linear. There are areas that are like big and all, but I wouldn't go as far as calling the game, at least how I'm seeing it though, an open world type of the game though. You basically do have your main mission, get to this point. Every now and then you will have some side missions or optional missions you could do. Most of these will get you, different items, weapons, or even these orbs that you use to power up Serious Sam in terms of having different abilities, like reloading weapons quickly or carrying two of the same guns and all that stuff. So it follows that type of gameplay that you may have known if you played, games like the original Serious Sam or the old school Wolfenstein or Doom type of the game. So even though it's sort of over the top in a way though, and it follows those type of games though, it still has its own charm and all that stuff. Plus, you get to drive their version of the Pope Mobile, which is a mecha version of the Pope Mobile, which is it's interesting and nice, to be exact. Next thing I do want to talk about is the story and dialogue. Now, I do want to talk about is that the story and dialogue in the game is not going to win any awards or anything like that. It's basically just, over the top, or it's stupid to a certain degree. But at the same time, it has its charm. It sort of comes off at it's so stupid, it's good. And that's what Serious Sam is, at least Serious Sam 4. I mean, some of the dialogue is ridiculous, some of it can be funny and all, but it has that certain charm to it. And that certainly isn't a bad thing for Serious Sam 4, to be exact. I'm not expecting the writing to be on the same level as what I see from like a Hideo Kojima game, or expect it to be like Breath of the Wild or anything like that. It's just something that is just you turn your brain off and just enjoy it for what it is. Dumb, stupid, fun, or dumb, a story being dumb, stupid to be exact. I mean, it's the same view I have with the Zombie Army series. Same thing though. It's not something to be taken too serious, and that's certainly fine with me. Every now and then there are games where it's just turn your brain off, don't take the story too serious or anything like that. And Serious Sam is one of those things. Basically, especially considering this is a prequel to the events of the other Serious Sam games, though, assuming if I'm getting that one correct. And last but certainly not least, though, is some of the enemies on the screen, though. One of the big selling points, at least how I see it, though, is that Serious Sam is known for having a whole lot of enemies, hundreds or even more on the screen, and this game doesn't disappoint, to be exact, though. I mean, you see like hordes of enemies, and it's just impressive how the developers were able to pull that off in a game like this, though, and it still remains impressive to this day, though. And there are different kinds of enemies, though. You have like zombified enemies, enemies that are like headless, to be exact. You know, you have like prison-like enemies, different kinds of alien-like enemies. It's like they're throwing the whole freaking kitchen sink at you, though. And so it still remains impressive, the type of enemies they have in the game, and impressive how they were able to pull all these enemies into one screen. And even on something like, say, the Xbox Series S, though, it's still very impressive that they can pull that off, though. So really neat how the developers and what engine they're using to pull a feast like that. I mean, you don't often see a lot of games that could pull that off, though. So really impressive, though. Make no mistake about that. Okay, we're going to take a quick break, and when we get back, we'll get to part 2, which is the cons for Serious Sam 4. So we'll take a quick break, and we will be right back. Okay, and we are back with part 2 of our video review of Serious Sam 4 for the Xbox Series X and S, though. Again, I'm basing this off my time playing off the Series S. So now that I gave you the pros, why don't we get started with the cons, though? Excuse me. And there are really only 2 cons I could think of, though. The first one has to do with the one that I talked about in the pros in terms of seeing 100 or more enemies on the screen. Now, as I mentioned, I thought that looked impressive and all, and it is, and it still remains impressive how they were able to pull that off. That said, though, at the same time, though, it also can lead to certain annoying and frustrating moments when you have like a whole bunch of enemies sort of like ganging up on you and all that stuff, especially when you have to make sure you watch your ammo and all that. So it does lead to certain frustrated moments, and there are times when I've died several times when I have a whole bunch of enemies grounding on me, especially if you end up being behind a wall and all that. So it can get, there are some annoying moments when that happens in a way, though, and frustrating moments. Does it make the game unenjoyable by any chance? No. It's just that this whole impression of seeing a whole bunch of enemies on the screen, it's kind of a blessing and a curse. It's impressive, but it can lead to certain annoying and frustrating moments, especially when you have the enemies sort of ganging up on you. So it goes both ways on this one in terms of the whole idea of seeing 100 or more enemies on the screen, though. And last but not least, I do want to talk about the visuals in the game, and the visuals are kind of a hit and miss. Now, it is worth pointing out, though, that you could play this game in both, has 2 different kinds of mode. You could do graphics mode or performance mode, though. I chose to stick this on performance mode to have the game played at 60 frames per second, and for the most part, it hits that 60 frames per second. And the visuals of the game, again, there are times when it doesn't look as bad, and then there are times when it looks just downright ugly. So it's not really the best looking game, though. It's not something I'm going to lose sleep over, but it doesn't really look hugely impressive, though. And of course, there are some performance issues that I have seen in terms of Serious Sam 4. While nothing that has made the game unplayable or anything like that, I've had some occasions when the frame rate does dip a little bit every now and then, not to the point that I found it to be unplayable, but it was certainly noticeable. And during one of my sessions, though, I did notice one two obvious things. One, there was an item flickering back and forth, and the other thing that I ran into was during the scene when Serious Sam was in the Pokemobile, there was a part where the game suddenly kicked me out and I had to go right back in, to be exact. And so far that seemed to have only happened once with me though. So there are certainly some performance issues I really think they should have ironed out before they released it on the Xbox Series S or X or the PS5. Don't know if anybody has experienced that on the PS5 or anything like that, but it is certainly something that I've noticed though. Again, nothing that made me not enjoy the game, but they certainly were noticeable, and I do hope that the development team, I do hope the folks who worked on Serious Sam 4, I'm hoping that they can iron out those issues, to be exact. Overall, I will say that Serious Sam 4 is a fun game, even though there are some flaws to it though, and it's far from being 100% perfect though. At its best though, the gameplay is still enjoyable and over the top. The story and dialogue, while it is stupid though, it's still good. It has that, it's so stupid, it's so dumb, yet it's still good though. And it still remains impressive that they could put like 100 or more enemies on the screen. I gotta give hats off to the developers for pulling that off though. However, at its worst though, sometimes that can lead to certain frustrated moments though, especially when you have enemies ganging up on you and you suddenly die very instantly though. And I will agree though that there are certainly some visuals are hit and miss. Some areas look okay, some don't, and there are certainly some performance issues I ran into that I do hope the developers are able to address. But overall, I would say my experience with the game is still good. I like that it has a bit of that old school first-person shooter, or if you're assuming you're playing in that mode, you can play it in third-person view, but I prefer first-person view though. Feel to it though, it's still enjoyable. I enjoyed the Serious Sam collection, and I certainly am enjoying the Serious Sam 4 though. I'm looking forward to whether or not they continue the series and what direction they will take Serious Sam. And even though this game was published by Devolver Digital, I really think, and this is just my opinion, I know some will disagree with me on this, but I really think that Devolver Digital should get the rights to Duke Nukem. And the reason is, if you look at Gearbox right now, outside of Borderlands, which is really the only game that I could think of that has universal appeal though, they aren't really much known for anything else though. I mean, Godfall is certainly getting, Godfall is certainly getting negative response though. Battleborn's pretty much dead. Who knows if we'll ever see another Brothers in Arms type of game. And don't get me started with Alien Colonial Marines and Duke Nukem Forever. I think we all know the story about those games. Not to mention, Duke Nukem has been pretty much reduced to basically making re-releases of his old games to make an appearance in Bulletstorm Full Clip Edition. So, at this point, I really think Devolver Digital should get the rights to Duke Nukem. Seeing how they handle Serious Sam and how they handle Shadow Warriors, I think they could do a better job with Duke Nukem than Gearbox has with the way Gearbox is handling Duke Nukem, though. But again, like I said, that's my take. But until we know whether that will happen or not, remains to be seen. But in either case, though, I enjoyed Serious Sam 4. It has its flaws. It's not 100% perfect, but I still think it is an enjoyable game, and I'm looking forward to whatever direction they take Serious Sam though. Now I'm going to wait here patiently for when Devolver Digital finally releases Shadow Warriors 3 though. Okay, this concludes this video review of Serious Sam 4 on the Xbox Series S. And again, these are my opinion. What are yours? What are your thoughts about Serious Sam 4? Have you tried the game out? Did you try it on the PS5? Did you try it on Xbox Series S and X, or the PC, or Google Stadia for that matter? If you have Game Pass, have you download the game on Game Pass and see if it's something that clicks with you or not in any way though? Did you enjoy the gameplay though? Was your time with the game good by any chance? Do you think they should do another Serious? Do you think that another Serious Sam game would be great though? Do you agree with what I said in this video? Do you disagree? Do you have a difference of opinion? As always, sound off on the comment section below. Let me know what you think. And if you do like this video, I hope you hit the like button. I would appreciate it. And I hope you do subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do, make sure you hit the bell icon for notifications of any new videos I put up. Also, feel free to share this video if you want to, and feel free to donate to my channel if you like. You do it through PayPal me or Patreon. Links will be in the description of this video. And I will see you again next time when I do another video. Hopefully that'll be soon. Until then, from Southern California, I wish you all a good day then. Bye!